The Washington Huskies football team made it to the national championship game last year. Then all the coaches and the players left. There was a coaching change and a lot of talent departed for the NFL. So, what are the Washington Huskies going into the 2024 season? Try and tell you right here. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. You know, I'm coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and a play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so where is Washington? Plus, the odds for the Ohio State-Oregon game have flipped already. Awesome news for IU football and basketball. And we'll have our pigskin picks. I'll explain what I'm talking about there. But after a week to digest the Washington Huskies spring game last week, I still don't know what they are or how they're going to do this season in the Big Ten. And I needed a week to digest things because I think they're the hardest team in the Big Ten to handicap. I think they're the hardest team to figure out what they're going to be for the upcoming 2024 season. Maybe you're a Huskies fan and you think the same thing. Maybe you have it all figured out, and I'll hear from you. That'll be great. So let's talk about them and figure some things out here. You know that Coach Jedd Fisch takes over for Kaleb DeBoer. And Jed tried to get some things going, something special going for the spring game event. Last Friday was labeled Dogs After Dark, and he was hopeful that some 40,000 people might show up, might feel like a real game atmosphere. Less than half of that showed up at best. Now, Huskies games in the spring, they don't particularly draw well historically, but you got to start somewhere. And last year's team and last year's coach, Kaleb DeBoer, they set a very high bar at 14-1 and finishing as runner-up in the national championship. The one in the 14-1 was the national championship game. Otherwise, flawless season. Now, some schools take their spring games a little more seriously than others. Some are glorified scrimmages. And I can tell you that last week in Washington, the purple team beat the gold team 24-23. But, I mean, the talent was divided between both teams rather evenly. There wasn't a first string and second string, and it was a game where linebackers and women's soccer coaches came on as celebrities to kick field goals. So it wasn't a real game. In fact, it was only 48 minutes instead of 60. You know, it seemed like a fun night out there. And even first-round NFL pick and former Huskies quarterback Michael Penix Jr. was out there wearing some Falcon swag, showing off a little bit, enjoying his time back at his old school. So let's start at quarterback and what we think we might expect this year for the Washington Huskies. They, of course, have Mississippi State transfer Will Rogers and also freshman Desmond Williams Jr. Those are basically the top two guys going at it. Now, Williams looked like a freshman. He gave up a pick six to Thaddeus Dixon, and he overthrew receivers all night. He was just 7 of 17 for 42 yards. Not too spectacular, but he's just getting his feet wet. Rogers, on the other hand, showed some flashes. He'll be the guy this year. 14 of 25 for 154 yards and a touchdown and an interception. The main target of the night, the thrill of the night, Denzel Boston. This is the wide receiver for Washington. 7 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown. In fact, not only was he the star of the day, he's been turning heads all spring. And by the way, he has some big shoes to fill. In fact, he has 6 shoes to fill because remember, the three-headed monster at wide receiver that Washington had last year, Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk are all in the NFL. You just don't replace that in 1 year. So he's at least they got Denzel Boston. That's something. That is a starting point for them on offense. On defense, a couple of people jump out at you. Cornerback Elijah Jackson, by the way, is just one of the 2 starters that returned from last year, and he didn't play in this spring. It kind of a game time precaution, had a little tweak, didn't want to risk anything so he can still stay strong, continue with his summer workout program. He said it was nothing serious. If it was a real game, he would have played. So nothing to worry about there. Interesting story in the defensive backfield in Vincent Holmes. He's been in the transfer portal twice. He's tried to leave Washington twice, and yet he remained. He stayed. Not very big. He's 6 foot, 174 pounds. Even though doesn't weigh a whole lot, he probably had the two biggest hits of the night. Just blew up wide receiver Keith Reynolds. And later, Camden Sermon was a helmet to helmet. Holmes would have been tossed and penalized if that was a hit in a regular season game. But guy likes to hit. Played a lot on special teams last year as a freshman, so he has a little bit of playing time. Again, was trying to debate, is Washington for him in the transfer portal when they made the coaching change, decided to stay. Thought about going back in the transfer portal this spring, decided to stay. Asked the coach if he could play wide receiver because that's where he did in the high school. It sounds like he's trying to figure himself out just a little bit. However, I would say given his ability to hit people, I think he's right where he belongs, and he will stay on the defensive side of the ball. There's also some portal news to report for the Washington Huskies. Michigan linebacker Hayden Moore is transferring to Washington. He was a true freshman. He redshirted last year, so he didn't play. He's got 4 years of eligibility left. He's going to replace Jordan Whitney on the depth chart because he just entered the transfer portal last week. So Washington loses a guy. They get another guy to come in. There's a lot of that going on still right now. Remember, you only had to enter the portal up until a certain date last month, but you can go to a school whenever. If you haven't decided yet, here we are sitting in May, going into June. July, you don't have a team yet. You can decide then if a team wants you. So there's going to be some trickling back and forth of players just as long as they had already announced that they were in the portal. So with 20 of the 22 starters gone at Washington and a semi-casual spring game, to be honest with you, I don't know what to expect in 2024. I really don't. I really tried to figure it out. I was really, really trying to figure it out for the last week. I'm not so sure I know what their first season in the Big Ten is going to look like. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be mediocre? Are they going to be on the bottom, trying to kind of starting over? I really have no idea at this point. I kind of think, I don't think they're going to compete for the title or anything like that. Maybe they fight to get into that middle tier. Maybe they really struggle here in this first year and in the bottom tier, trying to work their way up as they rebuild, literally rebuilding the entire football team right now. Now, the team opens up with a layup against Weber State on August 31st. They have home dates against Eastern Michigan and rival Washington State will fill the September schedule. And then September 21st, they have their first official Big Ten game. Northwestern comes out west to Seattle to take on the Huskies. And then the Huskies fly all the way across the country the following week to take on Rutgers, one of those dreaded cross-country flights we keep hearing about with the expansion of the Big Ten. But then comes October 5th. And if you're a Huskies fan, you already have this circled on your calendar. They take on Michigan in a rematch of last year's national championship game. But, I mean, is it really a rematch? Most of the coaches on both sides and most of the players on both sides are gone. Nevertheless, I think by that time, by October 5th, as that game, that Michigan game comes and goes, I think then and only then will we really know what this Washington Husky football team is for the 2024 season. Husky fans, I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up. You hit me up on Twitter or X at TalkBig10 10. Don't forget our website, TalkBig10 10.com, and also comments on YouTube are always welcome as well. And I'm sure I will hear from you guys on this. So we'll get to some of that later. But I want to remind you, particularly if you're new to this podcast, subscribe. We always ask our listeners and viewers to subscribe. It helps us both out. It's free and it's a click of a button. You don't ever have to worry about it again. So if you don't mind, click subscribe, and then you can follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. And that way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right, we've got, I'm going to look at that Oregon-Ohio State game. The line has flipped on Vegas. Why? We'll discuss that. And great news for Indiana football. It's kind of news you don't normally hear, and great news for Indiana basketball. So we're going to talk about all of that, and then we'll have our pigskin picks. We're going to look at championship odds after the spring. Odds have changed a little bit after odds makers have gotten a chance to look at spring football a little bit, play it out, transfer portal, injuries, all that. We'll let you know how many Big Ten teams dot the top 10 of the Vegas picks to get to the national championship and win it. That's all coming up right here in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. Game Time. Have you heard about this? If you watch this podcast, you have. We talk about it all the time. It's a great app for getting tickets to any event you want to go to. I mean, they're locked into baseball right now. Major League Baseball. Don't forget college baseball, college softball, all that stuff, NBA playoffs, NHL. But that's not all. Game Time also has tickets available to all your concerts, your comedy shows, everything you can think of right there at your fingertip, on your phone, on an app, the Game Time app. Check it out. They got last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedies. Like I said, all these things are available. And sometimes the later you wait, the cheaper they can get with these last-minute deals. They also show you the picture of the view of your seat, of the ticket you're about to buy. A couple taps on your phone. Boom. You got it. You're good to go. You're the hero with your group. Hey, I got tickets. Game Time app. Check that out. And what you need to do, you take the guesswork out of buying all this stuff, whether it be NBA tickets or whatever. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and the redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen and watch every single day. Appreciate that, especially you everydayers who keep coming back day after day. Always looking for new people. Tell your friends about us, spread the word, and subscribe. Subscribe here on YouTube. Share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website where everything is convenient right there. It's called talkbig10 10.com. All of our podcasts are archived there. You can buy merchandise from your favorite school. It's all right there at your fingertips. Again, talkbig10 10.com. Now, I keep talking about how the game of the year this football season is probably not going to be Michigan, Ohio State. It's probably going to be Ohio State, Oregon, to be honest, at Autzen Stadium, October 12th. It's already a hot ticket, already hard to get. So you go to our Game Time app and get them there. Our friends at FanDuel listed the Ducks as an early 1.5 point favorite, but recently the line is flipped. It's moved. It's now the other way. Ohio State minus 1.5. How about that? Portal news, hype, spring football. I don't know what makes the odd makers go, but they flipped the point spread on that one. So Ohio State is now the favorite on that. And also, in further details, OSU is minus 115 on the money line. Oregon is minus 104 on the money line. And the over-under in that game is set at 57.5. This could also be our first, major series in college football. This is why I was against expansion, actually, of the playoffs. So we'll have this game in October. Biggest game of the year, right? It's possible that those two could be the best two teams and they could play each other in the Big Ten and play each other for the Big Ten championship and play a second time. Because remember, we got rid of divisions. It's just the best two records go at it for the Big Ten championship. And frankly, if it's the best two teams in the Big Ten, win or lose in the Big Ten championship game, they're both going to the college football playoff, to the 12-team playoff. They could play a third time. I've talked about this before. We don't need college teams playing each other 3 times in a year. It's ridiculous, but that's what it is. And that's a real possibility, whether it be Michigan, Ohio State, or Oregon, Ohio State. This is a possibility. We will at some point see teams playing each other 3 times in 1 year. And if the first time is later in the season, it could be back to back, like the Michigan, Ohio State game. They can play each other in November. They can play each other in December. They can play each other in January. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I think it's a little weird, actually, but that's the system we have. Anyway, the last few days, we talked about a few positives with the Indiana Hoosiers, their football team. First-year head coach Curt Cignetti is really hitting the portal. Guys are coming. A couple of defensive pickups this week that were really good. And apparently people are starting to take notice. And one of the best quarterbacks in the country in a class of 2025 is giving IU a second look. He's already visited once. He's going to come visit a second time. A 5-star quarterback. Said no one ever. That doesn't happen in Bloomington. They don't get guys like that in the past. They are now. Julian Lewis, Carrollton, Georgia-based 5-star quarterback. Going to make his official visit to Bloomington May 31st. Made his first visit over the winter as soon as Cignetti got the job there at IU. Lewis thinks that IU is building something special. He thinks the staff they have is going to get that offense rolling. Other schools, of course, are begging for his services, like Southern Cal and Auburn and Colorado. And he originally committed to Southern Cal, but he reclassified from the class of 2026 to the class of 2025. He's going to graduate early. He decided to reopen his recruitment again after committing to Southern Cal. He's 6'1". He's only 185 right now, but he's a sophomore becoming a junior. But he's the number one quarterback in the class of 2025, according to some rating systems. And some rating systems say he's the number one overall player in the country, regardless of position, for 2025. Again, these players usually don't walk through the door in Bloomington. So this is unusual, and this is a good situation. Hopefully Indiana can close it and get him. And why would he consider Indiana, by the way? What have you thought about that? Well, IU's new quarterbacks coach is Tino Sinceri. He's known Lewis since he was 8 years old. So they're close. Some stats on Lewis. During his sophomore season last year, he played 13 games, threw for over 3,000 yards, 48 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. 48 and 2. How about that for a touchdown to interception ratio? He's consistent because during his freshman year, the year before, threw for over 4,000 yards and also had 48 touchdowns. Yeah. Indiana would be good to sign him. No doubt about it. Hey, anytime we talk recruiting, it's always brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. As long as we're talking about Indiana for a minute, let's talk basketball. I'm going to mention how things are going for Mike Woodson and the Indiana basketball team. You know, when the season ended, and it was disappointing, he had 0 recruits. He had 1 5-star signed up, but he decided he changed his mind. He bailed. So 0 new players coming in. It was a tough spot for Mike Woodson. It was kind of a make or break off-season situation. Well, he's been killing it on the transfer portal. He's been hitting it hard. Got the big man Omar Ball out of Arizona, Miles Rice out of Washington State, Kanan Carlisle out of Stanford, and Luke Good from Illinois. All of a sudden, IU is popping up in everybody's preseason top 25 list. It's incredible for the 2024-25 season. People who rank the portal and those things and net out players that leave versus ones that come in. A lot of them have Indiana with the best portal class in the Big Ten and the second best portal class in the entire country. So Mike Woodson gets them to come in here, gets them to mold to his defense and his offense, and boom. Big expectations in Indiana this year for basketball all of a sudden. I always ask you if you watch a lot of daytime TV, Fox Sports, FS1, ESPN, you know, where the talking heads are just yapping at each other and over each other. At least I'm yapping. It's just me. I'm not talking over somebody. I'm not screaming at you. You might want to turn them down and check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day. Brings you the biggest stories without the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or for free on Amazon Fire TV channels app that we talk about all the time. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, coming up, we're going to do a little pigskin pick segment. We do some sort of picks on Fridays anyway. We're going to put up the Vegas odds for who's going to win the national championship college football. They always change. This is the first look post-spring football. So a handful of Big Ten teams dotting this list that you'll want to check out. That's all coming up right here. See if your team made the list. Locked on Big Ten. We'll have that in just 1 minute. Monopoly Go. You all played the board game Monopoly when you were a kid, had your little pieces that you move around the board and all that money. Well, now it's all electronic, virtual, and it's called Monopoly Go. And it's a lot more elaborate than when you used to play when you were a kid. If you're very competitive, you're going to love this, either with your friends or against your friends. It's been downloaded over 150 million times, and it's a twist on the old Monopoly that you're used to. And you can put, there's hundreds of Monopoly boards going on at crazy locations all the time, building up amazing cities and bringing you big, big money. So check it out and download Monopoly Go. These contests that they have, there's you can have stickers and fill up a book, turn them in for prizes. It's great. You can have a heist and take all your friends' money. It's great, like an Ocean's 12 movie. It's all great stuff. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play, the App Store or Google Play. It is Monopoly Go. All right, it is now time for us to take a look at the odds, the Vegas odds for the national championship for college football. We'll see where our Big Ten teams fall on this list. I'm going to put it on screen, full screen, so you can take a look at this. I want to talk about this a little bit here. All right. This is, again, post spring football odds for winning a national championship. Number one, Georgia at plus 300. They got Carson Beck back there. Remember, they got Florida running back Trevor Etienne, who came in, and also Miami wide receiver Colby Young added to an already good team. The Ohio State Buckeyes, the first Big Ten team on the list at plus 450. Look, it is title or bust for Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. We've been talking about them a lot here lately on Locked On Big Ten. Of course, we would. They're going to be a big deal this year. Texas at plus 750. Don't forget that week 2 matchup at the Big House against Michigan. Quinn Ewers is the quarterback, but everybody wants him to be benched so that Arch Manning plays. I don't know. Quinn can do everything right, and still, if he gets subbed out, there'll be a standing ovation. Oregon, newcomer to the Big Ten at plus 850. Of course, Dylan Gabriel. They got strong offensive and defensive lines, and Dan Lanning, I think, has this team poised and ready to go into Big Ten and even on the national stage as well. Alabama's always going to be on a list, even though no more Nick Saban, plus 1,300. We've got LSU and Ole Miss at plus 1,500. LSU, by the way, there's some movement there on LSU at plus 1,500. They were plus 2,000. So somebody thinks they might be doing something. Brian Kelly, back-to-back 10-win seasons. Jaden Daniels is gone. Ole Miss at plus 1,500. Lane Kiffin. This is his best roster ever. If I had to pick a non-Big Ten team, I don't want to say sleeper team because they're on this list. Ole Miss, they might be something this year. They might be. Penn State's on this list at plus 2,000. And they're another one that moved a little bit. They were plus 2,500. Now it's plus 2,000. Abdul Carter, pass rusher. Watch him. We will watch Drew Aller, see if he progresses a quarterback. And I think Penn State benefits more than anybody in the country with the expanded 12-team playoff because now they can go 10-2 like they always do, and they will still make the playoffs. They got something to look forward to. By the way, no Michigan on their schedule this year. Michigan, by the way, they were not on this list earlier, but they are moving up. Who knows? Maybe because the name, jersey, whatever. Sharon Moore has a lot of work to do, but these are new odds, plus 2,200 for Michigan. And then Notre Dame also at plus 2,200. Marcus Freeman going into year 3. They got their quarterback from Duke, Riley Leonard, but he's recovering from surgery. So they're holding their breath to make sure that he'll be ready to go come the end of the season. So there you have it. Our post-spring football odds of winning a national championship, part of our spring pigskin picks here on Locked On Big Ten. So hope you like that. And there's some good stuff there. It's going to be here before you know it. All right. As I mentioned before, a couple of things. You can hit us up on Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten, number 10, all the time, and comments on YouTube. And don't forget our website. You see the scroll on the bottom, talkbig10, number 10.com. Tell your friends about us, especially if you know a Big Ten alum that's a friend or a family member. Let them know we're out here every day. Tell them to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Just click the button. It's free. Subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Check out another episode of Locked On Big Ten. We got them grouped by schools right there on our website, talkbig10, number 10.com. Go check that out. And when you're done, don't forget to check out our friends Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7 on YouTube as well. That'll do it. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Can't wait to jump back into this next week with all the latest offseason stuff going on with football. We've got college. We got the Big Ten softball championships this weekend. Big Ten baseball winding down. It's great. Fantastic time of year. We'll be all over it right here with you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten. We'll see you next time.